Hey guys, how's it going? Jordan Locke here. There's a major update in the case of the United Healthcare CEO who was unalived recently. You may have heard this case in the news. It's been making quite a few rounds on the internet and in news media. The CEO of United Healthcare, Brian Thompson, was unalived in New York City, and the police had been searching for a suspect. Well, now a suspect has been found and arrested. Luigi Mangione, 26 years old, was arrested at a McDonald's in Pennsylvania. Now, I read a bit about Luigi Mangione's life, and this guy's life is actually really interesting. He's actually a really smart guy. He's an Ivy League graduate. He wrote a manifesto before doing this, and his background is actually pretty fascinating. We're going to get into some of his background in a little bit. But first, I wanted to talk a bit more about the broader picture and why this case has been making such a splash in the news and on the internet, right? I'm sure you've heard about this case and about the CEO who was unalived and about the fact that the police were searching for a suspect. But the reason why this case is so fascinating is because it's not like other cases where people are rooting for the police to find the suspect. Everyone actually hates the guy who was unalived. And the reason for that is because this guy, Brian Thompson, was the CEO of United Healthcare, which is a pretty shady, pretty terrible insurance company, pretty abusive in an industry where companies are known to be shady, which is the healthcare insurance industry, the health insurance industry. This guy's company was actually one of the shadiest, right? And there are many facts that are going around to support this theory that this guy ran one of the shadiest and most abusive health insurance companies in the country. You may have heard on the internet, this fact is being thrown around quite a bit, the fact that the industry average, the healthcare industry average for denials for claims is around 15%. This guy's company was denying claims at a rate of over 30%. So that's twice as much as the industry average for claims that were being denied by this guy's company. That's sort of the major facts that you hear everyone talking about on the internet, but there are many more facts about this company that are super, super shady. One of the other facts that's not quite as well known is that this company, United Healthcare, was using an AI system to approve or deny claims that was known to have a 90% error rate, and they were using this, meaning 90% of the cases that were either approved or denied could have gone the other way because this software had a 90% error rate. And this company was actually using this to determine whether people's claims should be approved or not, knowing that the error rate for the software was this high. There are plenty of facts that paint United Healthcare in the worst possible light. And this is the reason why this case is so fascinating, because on the internet, I'm sure you've seen crowds of people in New York City and all over the country. Instead of cheering for the police to find the suspect, the people are actually cheering that the suspect did this to Brian Thompson, unalived Brian Thompson. And again, the reason for that is because this guy ran one of the shadiest health insurance companies in the country and sort of become a symbol of like corporate greed in this country. The same corporate greed that most people hate so much. So this is the reason why people on the internet are having such a fascinating reaction to the unaliving of this CEO, Brian Thompson. Now, clearly it goes without saying that you should not off people who you disagree with. I shouldn't even have to say that, but I know somebody in the comments is going to say something about that, so we're just going to preempt this by saying that. You should not off people who you have a problem with. That being said, this story is quite fascinating. We're going to get into a couple of different facets of this particular situation. So as I mentioned before, there are many, many cases floating around on the internet, and more of them are popping up every single day about people who are abused and gaslit by this health insurance company, United Healthcare. There's one particular case that stands out about a guy in Pennsylvania who had a serious condition called ulcerative colitis, and United Healthcare actually lied to him about his doctor's advice, gaslit him about the doses he should be taking, all in an effort to save money and to increase profits. So we're going to talk about this guy in a little bit, but before we do that, I kind of wanted to go over some of the facts about the suspect, Luigi Mangione, and what we know so far. So this guy, Luigi Mangione, this suspect, is clearly not your average criminal. A very intelligent guy, graduated college, became a software engineer, and has written online quite a bit about his to be quite frank, his righteous viewpoints on the way society should be and the problems that we have with our society right now. And we'll get into that stuff in a little bit. His Goodreads was actually found, and he has some pretty fascinating comments to make on Goodreads also that may give some insight into his actions, into his alleged actions with the CEO of United Healthcare. But before we get into that, I wanted to cover, like I said before, the story about this one guy. And this is just one abuse victim of United Healthcare among many, I'm sure, who was abused and gaslit by this company. This story is unbelievable. You can read more into it if you want to, but I'm just going to kind of cover the major highlights of the story. In May 2021, a nurse at United Healthcare called a colleague to share some welcome news about a problem the two had been grappling with for weeks. United provided the health insurance plan for students at Penn State University. It was a large and potentially lucrative account. Lots of young, healthy students paying premiums in, not too many huge medical reimbursements going out. This is exactly what insurance companies want to see. Lots of people paying premiums, not a lot of payouts to deal with. But one student was costing United a lot of money. Christopher McNaughton suffered from a crippling case of ulcerative colitis, an ailment that caused him to develop severe arthritis, debilitating diarrhea, numbing fatigue, and life-threatening blood clots. His medical bills are running nearly $2 million a year. United had flagged Mr. McNaughton's case as a high-dollar account, and the company was reviewing whether it needed to keep paying for the expensive cocktail of drugs crafted by the Mayo Clinic specialist that had brought McNaughton's disease under control after he had been through years of misery. On the 2021 phone call, which was recorded by the company, Nurse Victoria Kavanaugh told her colleague that a doctor contracted by United to review the case had concluded that Mr. McNaughton's treatment was not medically necessary. Her colleague, Dave Opperman, reacted to the news with a long laugh. "I knew that was coming," said Opperman, who heads up a United subsidiary that brokered the health insurance contract between United and Penn State. "I did too," Kavanaugh replied. Opperman then complained about McNaughton's mother, whom he referred to as this woman, for screaming and yelling and throwing tantrums during calls with United. The pair agreed that any appeal of the United doctor's denial of treatment would be a waste of the family's time and money. "We're still going to say no," Opperman said. More than 200 million Americans are covered by private health insurance, but data from the state and federal regulators show that insurers reject about 1 in 7 claims for treatment. Many people faced with fighting insurance companies simply give up. So this is where people are getting the fact that's circulating around the internet that United Healthcare was denying insurance coverage claims at twice the rate of the average. Here it says that the average is 1 in 7 claims, yet United Healthcare was denying about 30%, over 30% of claims, while 1 in 7 equates to roughly around 15%, a little lower than that. Insurers have wide discretion in crafting what is covered by their policies beyond some basic services mandated by federal and state law. They often deny claims for services that they deem not medically necessary. When United refused to pay for McNaughton's treatment for that reason, his family did something unusual. They fought back with a lawsuit, which uncovered a trove of materials, including internet emails and taped recorded exchanges among company employees. Those recordings offer an extraordinary behind-the-scenes look at how one of America's leading healthcare insurers relentlessly fought to reduce spending on care even as its profits rose to record levels. As United reviewed Mr. McNaughton's treatment, he and his family were often in the dark about what was happening or their rights. Meanwhile, United employees misrepresented critical findings and ignored warnings from doctors about the risks of altering McNaughton's drug plan. At one point, court records show United inaccurately reported to Penn State and the family that McNaughton's doctor had agreed to lower the doses of his medication. This health insurance company lied to this kid's family about the recommendations for his health condition so they could save money on his insurance. That's how terrible this company is. Another time, a doctor paid by United concluded that denying payments for Mr. McNaughton's treatment could put his health at risk, but the company buried this report and did not consider its findings. The insurer did, however, consider a report submitted by a company doctor who rubber-stamped the recommendation of a United nurse to reject paying for the treatment. United declined to answer specific questions about the case, even after Mr. McNaughton signed a release provided by the insurer to allow it to discuss details of his interactions with the company. United noted that it ultimately paid for all of Mr. McNaughton's treatments. In a written response, United spokesperson Maria Gordon Scheidlow wrote that the company's guiding concern was Mr. McNaughton's well-being. So here we have the United Healthcare spokesperson telling the media that the company tried to reject critical healthcare for Mr. McNaughton, lied about what his doctor recommended because they were concerned for his well-being. And it just so happened that in the process of being such a selfless health insurance company, they were also going to save on money and increase their profits, just as a side note. So there's a lot more to the story about Mr. McNaughton's particular case, his bout with ulcerative colitis, and then his subsequent bout and his family's bout with the insurance company that was supposed to be providing coverage so this guy could stay healthy. There's a ton more to the story, but I think that pretty much covers the gist of it. This company that Brian Thompson ran, United Healthcare, had no problem lying to the family about the doctor's recommendations, lying about the dosages that he should be taking, knowing very well that lowering the dosages were going to put Mr. McNaughton at risk. They had no problem with it as long as they were making profit and saving money on his particular account. And then on top of all that, they had the nerve to pass this off and say that they were concerned and they were going to reject the claims moving forward with the elevated dosage of the medication that he needed for ulcerative colitis because they were concerned with his well-being. That's the level of cognitive dissonance with these companies, and it's absolutely unbelievable. It's also an interesting fact that Luigi Mangione, the suspect who was just arrested today for the unaliving of the United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, also went to college in Pennsylvania. It's just an interesting fact that I noted. I'm not sure if they knew each other, they didn't go to the same college, but who knows? Maybe because of the fact that Luigi went to college in Pennsylvania, he was a bit more aware of this particular case of Mr. McNaughton and United Healthcare's attempts to essentially throw him under the bus and save money on his account, his well-being be completely damned. So you guys can read into this case a bit more if you want to. I just thought it was a good representation of how awful this company, United Healthcare, is to their patients, how abusive they are, how much they gaslight their patients. And again, guys, this is just one case. There are many more cases that you'll find on the internet of United Healthcare mistreating the patients that they're supposed to be taking care of, all over the internet if you do some searching. So guys, I want to end this video by giving you some insight into Luigi Mangione's character. Luigi actually had a Goodreads account. He was quite the avid reader, and he left a response concerning a book that he read called Industrial Society and Its Future. He rated the book 4 stars out of 5, and this is what he had to say about the book. Clearly written by a mathematics prodigy, reads like a series of lemmas on the question of 21st century quality of life. It's easy to quickly and thoughtlessly write this off as a manifesto of a lunatic in order to avoid facing some of the uncomfortable problems it identifies. But it's simply impossible to ignore how prescient many of his predictions about modern society turned out. He was a violent individual, rightfully imprisoned, who maimed innocent people. While these actions tend to be characterized as those of a crazy Luddite, however, they are more accurately seen as those of an extreme political revolutionary. A take I found online that I think is interesting is this. Had the balls to recognize that peaceful protest has gotten us absolutely nowhere, and at the end of the day, he's probably right. Oil barons haven't listened to any environmentalists, but they feared him. When all other forms of communication fail, violence is necessary to survive. You may not like his methods, but to see things from his perspective, it's not terrorism. It's war and revolution. Fossil fuel companies actively suppress anything that stands in their way, and within a generation or two, it will begin costing human lives by greater and greater magnitudes, until the Earth is just a flaming ball orbiting third from the sun. Peaceful protest is outright ignored. Economic protest isn't possible in the current system. So how long until we recognize that violence against those who lead us to such destruction is justified as self-defense? These companies don't care about you, or your kids, or your grandkids. They have zero qualms about burning down the planet for a buck. So why should we have any qualms about burning them down to survive? We're animals just like everybody else on this planet, except we've forgotten the law of the jungle and bend over for our overlords when any other animal would recognize the threat and fight to the death for their survival. Violence never solved anything is a statement uttered by cowards and predators. So that was Luigi Mangione's response on Goodreads to the book Industrial Society and Its Future. And I think it offers some insight into the current situation that we find ourselves in, with him being a suspect of unaliving the CEO of United Healthcare, Brian Thompson. Guys, I hope this video was helpful in you kind of understanding this whole situation a little more. If you found this helpful, please like and subscribe to my channel, and I will continue to cover this situation. Thank you so much for your time, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care.